Hi, Joe Cerrone. Welcome to CAD 230 Introduction to Solidworks and our weekly Zoom video meeting. Module 5 is available. Module 5 covers patterns, shells, mirror, and array features. As we look at Module 5, it covers Chapter 7 from the textbook and goes through, and we will need to complete these 4 CAD models. As we look at these CAD models, they're going to use linear arrays. If we take a look at, kind of looks like an ice cube tray. As we look at this tray right here, we would start off with this shape like this part, excuse me, like this. And then as we start to work with it, this would be called our seed with this boss extrude. And then what we would do is we would take that and create a linear pattern of it, shell it, and then we would apply these radii to kind of soften that up. And so that's the first lab. And then as we look at the next lab, I believe it's this gear shape pattern. And this is very similar where we start off with a initial seed, which is going to be this initial gear shape. And as we look at this, we'll start off by creating this gear tooth. And then once we have that gear tooth, we'll array that. And I'm having a little trouble with this, getting it to show up properly. That's what I was looking for. It's actually in the second part. The first part, we do the profile and we revolve it about the center axis, and then we'll create this for the gear tooth. And then we'll use a circular pattern to remove that, and then extrude cut for this keyway. Real basic, straightforward, different application. Instead of a linear pattern, we're doing a circular pattern here. And then our next one. And this might be the last one, I think. And this one has a curve that it will follow. And so as we go through and we create this geometry, it's not too bad to create the CAD geometry. And then what we pick up on this that's a little bit different that we didn't do before was this pattern for the curve is created by converting the entities. And so if we turn on this front plane or make it visible, what we did was we worked on that front plane and we brought in the entities from the curves and projected them onto that plane using convert entities. And then we'll create the seed for that right here, and we'll have that follow this curve pattern. Occasionally I'll have some people who have some errors with a zero thickness value, and that can happen if this curve isn't created properly when you convert it. And if it does give you a zero thickness, what I would recommend is delete the curve and try it again and convert it and see if that works for you. And that usually will fix it up. What happens when there's a zero thickness, there's not enough room between the whole pattern and the edge of the part. And so it fails. And then lastly, we have this part right here, or maybe the other one was lastly. But again, another one of these circular patterns. This one's got a nice geometry to it. It's got a lot of curves, some nice technique as far as being able to go through and work with a revolve. And then once we create that revolve, we can start to create these feet, and then we'll revolve those feet. Extrude cut, and do another circular pattern. And then we always fillet these things to make them better products. As far as the design aspect goes, you always want to put some radii on these, or you will have sharp edges. And that doesn't really work in the design field for most of your products. You can get cut on it. All right, and so that's our 4 projects that are due for lab number 5. Let's see if I can get back here. We will be having a midterm. Next week is spring break. So I don't have a Zoom meeting. I didn't put anything new, but I will make the modules available for you if you want to work on it. So module 6 is available and you're welcome to work on that over break. We'll go through module 6 when we get back from break. And I'll also release the midterm practice exam. Midterm practice exam is modeled towards the CSWA. And so if I take a look at the content here, and then we look at our midterm practice exam, these are the small parts that are taken from a textbook, the Solidworks practice problems. And so if I click here, and I highly recommend you take the exam. The final exam will be the CSWA if you decide to take that option. And you go through and you create these different parts. It's good to start off with basic parts. And so I don't overly complicate it because when we go through the midterm, I want you to be able to draw the part. We'll assign a material to it. And so on the CSWA, it adds a material with a density, and then they use that analysis of that part to see if you're within the right answer, just like we're doing with the volume quizzes. And so we'll model these different parts, calculate out the mass properties after we assign the materials. And I think it's kind of fun. You kind of crank through these. I like taking these kind of CAD tests. And so I will release that after spring break. If you want access to it earlier, you can send me an email and I'll be happy to give you as much work as you want. We have tons of content, but I am trying to kind of pace things so that, you know, it runs at a stable speed. And everybody who's in the course is doing well. The work is turning in. The work is right. I've seen some really very good sketches. Everybody seems to understand now how to fully define their sketches and apply the features. So I think things are working okay for us. So with that, we're up to module 5. Module 6 is available if you do want to work with these display states. And display states are kind of cool for 3D printing because you can have different display states that are associated with the nozzles of the printers. And so you can have one display state print one color or one material and another display state print another, kind of like we do with layers with AutoCAD if you've taken that. And so that I will go over after break. The midterm practice exam, we talked about that and these practice problems. And then after that, we'll just continue to go through the course content. I do have a 3D printer lab. I kind of like this one. It's pretty fun. That's a good project if you're looking for something to do over break. Work on this vise assembly. It'll take everything that we've learned from creating sketches to modeling parts to creating assemblies. And we'll get into assemblies also after break, where we can actually simulate the movement of the parts. And so this is on for you. You can take a look at it and see what that looks like. We'll create the drawings. We'll create the animations. I've got some bonus assignments in there for anybody who wants to do it. And then as we start to work with SolidWorks, it's got these threading options and allows you to actually cut threads and we can 3D print them. And so some neat things, some really neat things coming up. And it's all pretty well programmed in the course for you. So with that, that's our quick review for today, March 8th. Module 5 is available. Next week is spring break. When we come back from spring break, we'll do a midterm practice, and the following week, the midterm will be due. So when I do the midterm practice, I'll also assign the midterm, and I'll give you a week to do that. And you don't have to take the midterm practice. It won't be scored, but a lot of people like that. And we'll be using a proctoring software called HonorLock for the multiple choice questions. And so there's two parts to the midterm practice. One part is the hands-on drawing part, and the other one is multiple choice questions. And in order to verify identity and to make sure that everybody is who they say they are, we'll use this honor lock system. And you need basically a webcam on your laptop. And then you just need to be able to show your identification on the webcam. The people who proctor it'll ask you to walk, pan the camera around the room, and then it records you taking the exam. And the exam is just going to be you going through and answering multiple choice questions from the end of the chapters. And so we've taken the questions from the questions from the end of the chapters and the quizzes and incorporated them into the midterm. And again, you can practice for that. All right, so that ends this quick review. I'm going to stop the recording and open things for questions.